The Zalaxian delegation had prepared extensively for first contact with humans. They had studied Earth's transmissions, analyzed the atmospheric composition of human habitats, and even attempted to understand human facial expressions. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared Ambassador Krulzok for Commander Sarah Chen's companion. "And this is Jupiter," Chen said casually, scratching behind the ears of the massive beast sitting beside her chair in the diplomatic chamber. The creature's tongue lolled out, and its tail thumped rhythmically against the polished floor. Krulzok's translucent skin paled from emerald to a sickly mint. "You keep a predator at your diplomatic functions." His three eyes blinked asynchronously, a sign of extreme stress among his species. Chen laughed, the sound only heightening the tension among the alien visitors. "Jupiter's not a predator. Well, technically his ancestors were, but he's just a Bernese mountain dog, completely domesticated." Domesticated predator was an oxymoron to the Zalaxians, whose evolutionary history as prey animals had led them to develop advanced technology, specifically to avoid physical confrontation with other species. The diplomatic meeting was proceeding according to protocol when Jupiter, apparently bored with the proceedings, decided to investigate the interesting-smelling visitors. Breaking from Chen's side, he bounded enthusiastically toward the Zalaxian delegation. Panic erupted instantly. Junior diplomats scrambled backward, knocking over carefully arranged refreshments. Two security officers activated their personal shields, dome-shaped energy barriers designed to repel projectiles and energy weapons, not friendly canines. Ambassador Krulzok emitted the high-pitched whistle that, in prehistoric times, had warned his ancestors of approaching danger. Commander Chen simply reached into her pocket. "Jupiter. Ball." The dog skidded to a halt, head swiveling back toward his human companion. Chen pulled out a tennis ball, and Jupiter's attention was instantly redirected, his previous mission forgotten. To the Zalaxians' collective horror, Chen casually strolled through one of the active energy barriers, a feat they believed physically impossible, tossed the ball down the length of the meeting hall, and continued discussing interstellar trade regulations while Jupiter happily chased after it. "As I was saying about the proposed carbon exchange program," Chen continued, seemingly oblivious to the diplomatic chaos unfolding around her, "Earth is prepared to offer significant technology transfers in exchange for access to your atmospheric processing techniques. The beast, it responds to your commands," Third Envoy Telex observed, his voice modulator unable to fully mask his astonishment. "Most of the time," Chen replied with a shrug. "Unless squirrels are involved. Then all bets are off." The translator implants struggled with the concept of squirrels, eventually settling on small arboreal prey creatures whose significance to canines exceeds rational explanation. Later that evening, after the humans had retired to their quarters, Security Officer Michtel reviewed the surveillance feeds. Her curiosity had gotten the better of her professional caution. The footage showed a junior Zalaxian diplomat, Vrex, surreptitiously entering the quarantined area where Jupiter had been settled for the night. The recording captured Vrex extending a trembling six-fingered hand toward the sleeping canine, jerking back when Jupiter opened one eye. What happened next would become legendary in Zalaxian diplomatic corps. Jupiter rolled onto his back, exposing his belly, and Vrex, after several false starts, finally placed his hand on the dog's fur. The report Ambassador Krulzok transmitted to the Zalaxian High Council that night contained a phrase that would soon spread throughout the galaxy. "These humans fear nothing. They pet everything. And most disturbingly, their predators appear to enjoy it." Dr. Marcus Okafor adjusted his tie nervously as the 12 alien representatives filed into the auditorium at the Berlin Interspecies Research Center. The Galactic Council had organized this summit specifically to understand humanity's unique relationship with Earth's fauna, a subject that had become the most requested research topic across 17 star systems since first contact. "Welcome to Earth's first Xenozoological Summit," Dr. Okafor began, his voice steady despite the pressure. "Today's agenda includes visits to wildlife rehabilitation centers, domestic pet facilities, and traditional animal husbandry operations. The Moravian delegate raised a tentacle. Clarification required. Pet concept remains incomprehensible. Your species voluntarily cohabitates with non-sapient life forms that serve no nutritional or defensive purpose. Indeed, Okafor smiled. In fact, our first demonstration today involves companion animals that many humans consider family members. As if on cue, the side door opened, and his assistant led in 5 humans with their respective pets: a python draped around a teenager's shoulders, a woman holding a tarantula, an elderly man with a ferret, a young girl with a rabbit, and a zookeeper with a baby alligator. The reaction was immediate and chaotic. 3 delegates from the aquatic Luraxi species emitted distress pheromones that triggered the ventilation system's biohazard protocols. The avian torrid representative molted stress feathers all over its seat. Most dramatically, the insectoid Dr. Trivik leaped onto his chair, his translator broadcasting a high-pitched screech before shorting out. Perhaps we should have started with something less diverse, Okafor's assistant whispered. The summit proceeded with mixed results. The visit to a local farm nearly ended the diplomatic initiative altogether when the delegates witnessed children riding horses. "You permit your offspring to mount your war beasts," gasped the Meldorian representative, his translucent membrane fluttering in agitation. "On my world, only our most elite warriors may approach such creatures, and only after ritual preparation." "They're not war beasts," explained Emma, the 10-year-old equestrian demonstrating basic dressage. "This is Buttercup. She likes carrots and being brushed, and she gets scared during thunderstorms." The footage of alien delegates watching human children atop war beasts hit 2 billion views within hours of being leaked to Earth's social media platforms. The afternoon's falconry demonstration proved even more contentious. As a Harris's hawk swooped down to land on the falconer's gloved arm, 7 delegates activated emergency evacuation protocols. "Your species has weaponized aerial predators," demanded the Vexillor security officer after order was restored. "It's more of a partnership," the falconer explained, gently stroking the bird's feathers. "Humans and raptors have worked together for thousands of years." The summit reached its nadir during the spider exhibit when Dr. Trivik, himself resembling an elegant arachnid, discovered humans sometimes kept spiders as pets. "This is categorically unacceptable," he chittered, mandibles clicking rapidly. "You imprison my genetic cousins for amusement. Next you'll claim humans domesticate each other." It took 3 hours of careful diplomatic negotiation and a lengthy explanation of convergent evolution to coax Dr. Trivik from the supply closet where he'd barricaded himself. That evening, security cameras caught 4 alien delegates sneaking into the petting zoo after hours. The footage showed initial trepidation transforming into something remarkably similar to human wonder as they carefully extended limbs, tentacles, and sensory appendages to touch the patient therapy animals. Dr. Okafor included this unauthorized encounter in his official report, noting, while officially expressing horror at human-animal interactions, several species show unmistakable curiosity when unobserved. Zoological Summit Day 2 will proceed with smaller groups and gentler introductions, and significantly more security to prevent unauthorized media leaks. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez violated 17 separate clauses of the newly established Galactic Embassy protocols the day she brought Aristotle and Plato to work. The regulations specifically prohibited non-essential Earth fauna from diplomatic premises, but Rodriguez had maintained that her Maine Coon cats were, in fact, essential. "My effectiveness as a negotiator decreases by 30% without them," she had informed her superiors, "and I don't recall anyone consulting Earth before unilaterally drafting these protocols." The Trade Route Commission meeting began precisely on schedule. Representatives from 28 spacefaring civilizations gathered around the enormous holographic display mapping the disputed sectors between the Vosarian Empire and the Talaxian Confederacy. The negotiations had already stretched over 6 months, with neither side willing to compromise on access rights, to a particularly resource-rich asteroid belt. Vosarian Ambassador Kaveric was midway through his 14th recitation of historical precedent when Aristotle, the larger of Rodriguez's two cats, chose that moment to make his entrance. The massive feline sauntered directly across the central holographic display, his fluffy tail passing through star systems and trade routes with magnificent indifference. Kaveric froze mid-sentence, his species' evolutionary history as ambush predators made them particularly sensitive to unexpected movement. "Security breach," barked his aide, activating a personal shield generator. What happened next would be analyzed by xenopsychologists for decades. Instead of showing alarm, 3 human diplomats simultaneously made the same soft cooing sound. Rodriguez's assistant, Dr. Patel, actually stood up from his position and walked toward the intruder. "Who's a handsome boy?" Patel crooned, scratching Aristotle behind the ears, while the cat batted at a holographic star system, sending it spinning off its orbital path. The Vosarian delegation withdrew in protest, citing obvious psychological warfare tactics. In their culture, bringing a predator, even a small one, to negotiations constituted a coded death threat. "I assure you, Ambassador Kaveric, this is merely my pet," Rodriguez explained once the Vosarians had been coaxed back to the table. "Cats go wherever they please. It's practically their defining characteristic. You claim no control over this predator, yet it obeys unspoken commands to disrupt our negotiations." Kaveric's dermal scales had darkened to a deep purple, signaling extreme suspicion. The situation deteriorated further when Plato, the smaller but more mischievous cat, emerged from wherever he'd been hiding and leaped directly onto the lap of the Seleucian prime minister. The dignitary, whose species resembled bipedal gazelles, went rigid with terror as Plato kneaded his expensive ceremonial robes, purring thunderously. "Do not move," hissed his security chief. "The predator is engaging in pre-consumption behavior." "Actually, he's showing affection," Rodriguez's assistant explained, failing to suppress a smile. "The purring means he likes you." Later that evening, after the emergency recess had been called and most delegations had retreated to their quarters, security footage captured an intriguing scene. Kaveric, the Vosarian ambassador who had been most vocally outraged, returned to the empty conference room. Aristotle, who had claimed a comfortable chair, opened one eye as the alien approached. What the security AI labeled as reconnaissance looked suspiciously like the ambassador tentatively extending a clawed hand toward the cat. His confidence evaporated when Aristotle rolled over, exposing his belly in what humans recognized as a display of trust, but which resembled a combat posture to Vosarian sensibilities. The most viral moment of the incident, however, came the following morning. Junior diplomat Sophia Kim was recorded calmly removing a wasp from the Seleucian prime minister's chambers, while the dignitary cowered behind a force field. Honestly, she was heard explaining to the trembling alien, "I'm more afraid of my ex than I am of bees. At least wasps are predictable." The resulting human fear index meme, comparing various galactic terrors to Sophia's ex, required emergency bandwidth allocation across 3 sectors of space. Captain Jamal Washington studied the holographic projection of Dread Whirl spinning slowly above the briefing table. The planet's atmosphere swirled with violent storm systems, its surface a patchwork of environments that Earth scientists classified as aggressively inhospitable. "So this is the Galactic Council's test?" Washington asked, scratching his beard thoughtfully. "They want us to visit a planet that even their veteran explorers avoid." Admiral Chen nodded. "They're calling it an opportunity to demonstrate human adaptability. But it's clearly a challenge. The Council believes our interactions with Earth's animals are anomalous. They want to see how we handle truly dangerous creatures." "I like animals," Dr. Maizong, the team's zoologist, interjected. "Even dangerous ones." 3 weeks later, the human expedition made planetfall on Dread World in a specialized research vessel. Every movement was captured by drone cameras for broadcast across galactic networks, where viewership had already shattered previous records. 18 trillion sentient beings watched as the small team of 5 humans established their base camp on a rocky plateau overlooking a sulfurous jungle. The primary predator species is designated the Void Stalker, Washington read from the briefing, setting up equipment with casual efficiency. Responsible for 143 recorded fatalities among previous expeditions. Fancy name, marine biologist Raj Patel commented, unpacking what appeared to be recreational equipment alongside his scientific gear. That it's just a big cat or something. The aliens watching the broadcast were confounded when Washington assigned each team member a shift for what he called treat duty, distributing a variety of food items, squeaky toys, and what xenobiologists would later describe as domestication starter kits. The expedition's first encounter with local wildlife came during Zhang's perimeter check. The massive arthropod that lunged from the underbrush had nightmare-inducing mandibles and exoskeleton plates that previous explorers had discovered were impervious to standard energy weapons. Galactic viewers watched in collective horror as Zhang fell backward, seemingly defenseless, then in bewilderment as she pulled a small woolen object from her pocket. "Is that yarn?" the Talaxian commentator asked, mandibles clicking in confusion. The predator paused its attack, multifaceted eyes fixed on the colorful ball, as Zhang gently rolled it toward the creature. What followed was 20 minutes of the supposedly lethal predator batting the yarn back and forth, behavior remarkably similar to Earth felines. Zhang narrated her observations with professional detachment, occasionally venturing close enough to touch the creature's armored carapace. Note the sensitive area beneath the third dorsal plate, she recorded calmly while scratching a spot that made the monster's leg thump rhythmically against the ground. Response suggests pleasure centers, similar to mammalian nervous systems. The broadcast's viewership doubled overnight, with particular attention from the Exarillion Empire, whose military had lost an elite squadron to these same creatures a decade earlier. The expedition's defining moment came on the 7th day when Washington encountered 6 Void Stalkers surrounding their camp. Instead of retreating to safety, he calmly sat cross-legged on the ground and unpacked a portable food preservation unit. "Feeding time," he announced, tossing treats to each creature while explaining to the camera the fundamental principles of positive reinforcement training. The key is consistency and clear boundaries. They're just big space puppies once you understand their behavior. That phrase, just big space puppies, crashed translation matrices across 17 star systems as linguists struggled to reconcile the concept with species who had evolved seeing all unknown organisms as existential threats. By Expedition Day 14, the humans had cataloged, named, and established routines with 23 species previously classified as apex predators. Patel had discovered the supposedly deadly abyssal leviathans responded to underwater belly scratches, just like dolphins. Astrobiologist Kevin Okafor had established what he described as a promising therapeutic relationship with a colony of toxic spore producers that now changed colors in response to his whistling. The Galactic Council's challenge had backfired spectacularly. Instead of proving human recklessness, the expedition had demonstrated something far more unsettling to galactic observers: the possibility that fear itself might be optional. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as the vote tally appeared hovering above the central days. After 6 days of contentious debate, the interspecies exchange program had been approved by the narrowest of margins. "This is unprecedented," muttered the Zalaxian delegate to his aide. "Allowing aliens to live among humans, exposing them to Earth's predators." The liability waivers alone required 17 appendices. Yet public fascination with human-animal relationships had reached such intensity that even the most conservative council members couldn't ignore the potential diplomatic and scientific benefits. The resulting program paired alien scientists with human families, while sending human specialists to alien worlds to help establish healthier relationships with local fauna. The reality show Aliens and Animals debuted to record viewership across 27 star systems. Its most compelling storyline followed Ambassador Gleckmore, a dignitary from the Felbian species, evolutionary prey animals whose flight response had been honed across millennia, living with the Rodriguez family and their 5 rescue cats. Day 12 in the human dwelling. Gleckmore dictated into his personal recorder from the safety of a bedroom closet. The small predators continue their psychological warfare. The one designated Whiskers place a partially consumed native rodent on my sleep platform. I interpret this as a threat display, though my host insists it represents gift-giving behavior. Meanwhile, on Earth, astrobiologist Skatal struggled to overcome his species' genetic fear of quadrupeds. 8-year-old Sophia Williams had appointed herself his personal coach in operation. Pet the dog. Mr. Skatal, Max won't hurt you, she explained patiently, demonstrating by hugging her Labrador retriever. See, he's wagging his tail. That means he's happy. In my species, Skatal replied, his voice modulator struggling to mask his distress. Rapid appendage movement precedes an attack sequence. The breakthrough came during week 6, after daily exposure therapy, starting with observing the dog from behind a safety barrier, then progressing to being in the same room. Skatal managed to extend a tentative appendage toward Max while the dog was sleeping. The live broadcast of this moment caused emotional breakdowns among viewers across 17 star systems. When Max sleepily licked Skatal's limb and the alien didn't retreat, commentary feeds crashed from volume overload. I touched the quadruped, Skatal announced with unmistakable pride. And I survived. Human specialists deployed to alien worlds faced their own challenges. Dr. Lena Patel's work with the Moravians to overcome their ancient fear of songbird-like creatures initially progressed well, until she involved local children. Religious protests erupted on 6 planets when footage emerged of Moravian youngsters cautiously feeding native avians under Patel's supervision. Conservative factions accused humans of corrupting proper species boundaries and recklessly disrupting ecological respect. The diplomatic crisis deepened when Patel's 3-year-old daughter, who had accompanied her on the mission, was recorded riding a juvenile Moravian forest creature that elders had for generations described as a soul-devouring demon. She's feeding it apple slices, an incredulous elder told his followers. The demon beast that consumed our ancestors now performs tricks for fruit. Across the galaxy, divisions deepened between those embracing human-inspired approaches to wildlife and traditionalists who viewed such practices as dangerous heresy. The Talaxian parliament nearly collapsed when its leader was caught on security feeds attempting to pet the domesticated guard beast after publicly condemning the practice. The exchange program's most unexpected outcome emerged when medical researchers discovered positive health impacts among participants. Species who had lived in constant fear of their world's fauna showed reduced stress hormones after controlled positive interactions with animals. It appears, noted the preliminary report to the Galactic Council, that what humans call pets may serve a biological function beyond companionship. The practice of petting produces measurable neurochemical changes across diverse physiologies, suggesting an unexpected evolutionary advantage to interspecies bonding that our civilizations have overlooked. The report concluded with an observation that would fundamentally alter galactic society. The human capacity for forming emotional bonds with potentially dangerous species may not be a reckless anomaly, but rather an advanced evolutionary adaptation we would be wise to cultivate. The emergency klaxons on Harmony Station began wailing at precisely 3:47 hours. Commander Viktor Petrov was jolted from sleep by his AI assistant's urgent report. Critical life support failure in Biodiversity Sector 7. Containment breach confirmed. Multiple Earth species detected outside authorized zones. Petrov cursed in Russian, then English for good measure. Harmony Station, the multicultural space hub orbiting Jupiter, housed Earth's largest off-planet collection of terrestrial flora and fauna, a living museum showcasing humanity's biodiversity to the galaxy. Now those carefully maintained habitats were failing, and their inhabitants were loose on a station with over 2,000 alien residents who considered most Earth creatures somewhere between terrifying and nightmarish. "Implement Emergency Protocol Sigma," Petrov ordered, pulling on his uniform, "and get me a station-wide status report." Within minutes, the situation had deteriorated. Alien residents were barricading themselves in their quarters. The Palaxian ambassador had activated his personal escape pod, and 17 security drones had been deployed with standard containment equipment. What Petrov hadn't anticipated was the response from the station's human population. "Commander, we have an unusual situation," his security chief reported hesitantly. "The humans are organizing some kind of independent rescue operation. They're calling it the Great Space Safari." Petrov arrived at the emergency command center to find it transformed. Someone had established a makeshift coordination hub with handwritten signs labeling different sections. Team Fluffy, mammals. Team Scales, reptiles. Team Feathers, birds. And Team Splash, aquatic species. "Who authorized this?" Petrov demanded. Dr. Lydia Montgomery, the station's xenobiologist, looked up from distributing what appeared to be pet toys. "No one, sir. But we've got 53 people with animal handling experience, and your security drones are just making things worse." The Hernandez twins already deactivated 3 that were chasing terrified rabbits through hydroponics. Petrov recognized the inevitable and made a command decision. "All security drones stand down. Transfer control to Dr. Montgomery." The camera drones broadcasting the crisis across the galaxy captured remarkable scenes over the next 4 hours. Human maintenance workers crawled through access ducts coaxing ferrets with treat trails. Off-duty pilots played recorded whale songs to guide confused dolphins back to their habitat. Most spectacularly, a line of cafeteria workers formed a conga line, shaking treat bags to herd a group of flamingos along a corridor. Alien observers, watching from secure areas or via broadcasts, struggled to comprehend the humans' casual approach to creatures their own species would consider dangerous. "The small pink ones are approaching the quilled venom shooters," narrated a Zalaxian commentator in horrified fascination as 2 human children carefully gathered escaped porcupines, using oven mitts in gentle words. The crisis reached its dramatic peak when maintenance technician Aisha Johnson encountered an injured Bengal tiger in the main food court. 17 alien security teams monitored through cameras as Johnson sat cross-legged 3 meters from the growling predator. "Hey there, beautiful," she said softly, remaining perfectly still. "You're scared, aren't you?" "Me too. This isn't your territory." For 23 minutes, Johnson simply talked to the tiger, singing what she later described as "my cat's favorite lullaby," until the animal's posture relaxed. When the veterinary team finally arrived, the tiger permitted their approach without aggression. As the immediate crisis subsided, Harmony Station's alien population emerged from lockdown to find humans hosting an impromptu rescue party in the central plaza, complete with all recovered animals safely contained but still visible. "Would you like to meet her?" Johnson asked a group of cautiously approaching Moravian diplomats, indicating the now sedated tiger receiving medical care. "Her name is Lakshmi. She's actually quite gentle once she trusts you." The station's security chief observed with astonishment as several aliens who had hours earlier demanded the elimination of dangerous Earth fauna now tentatively extended various appendages to touch creatures under human supervision. That evening, Commander Petrov made his official report to Galactic Command. He concluded with an observation that would fundamentally alter emergency protocols throughout inhabited space. The crisis at Harmony Station revealed that our most effective emergency resource was not our technology or security measures, but rather humanity's unique capacity for empathizing with non-sapient species. I recommend immediate revision of first response protocols to incorporate this heretofore overlooked capability. Supreme Commander Draz Kull of the Voratian Dominion surveyed the holographic projection of Earth with cold calculation. His species had conquered 17 worlds through a combination of superior technology and psychological warfare. Specifically, their bioengineered war beasts, creatures so terrifying that many civilizations surrendered rather than face them in battle. "Begin the intimidation sequence," he ordered, his mandibles clicking with anticipation. "Let the humans witness what awaits them." Across Earth, communication systems were hijacked to broadcast footage of Voratian war beasts tearing through armored barriers, their chitinous exoskeletons deflecting energy weapons, their multiple jaws crushing anything in their path. The message was clear: submit or face these nightmares. The humans' response was not what Draz Kull expected. "They're deploying. Civilians?" reported his perplexed intelligence officer as the first dropships landed outside major population centers. Instead of military forces, Earth had sent animal behaviorists, veterinarians, and what intelligence identified as social media pet training influencers to the landing zones. The Voratian advance stalled as confused field commanders reported their frontline beasts were ignoring attack commands, distracted by strange projectiles that humans were launching from simple mechanical devices. "They're called tennis balls, sir," explained a bewildered lieutenant. "The war beasts appear to find them entertaining." Draz Kull ordered the propaganda division to broadcast more feeding frenzies, promising similar fates to resistant humans. Earth responded with its own broadcast. A gray-haired woman in a cardigan sweater demonstrating proper techniques for approaching nervous animals, speaking directly to the camera as if educating the invasion force. "Notice how I'm making myself smaller and non-threatening," she explained calmly, approaching the snarling war beast. "I'm avoiding direct eye contact, which many species perceive as a challenge." Viewers across the galaxy watched in disbelief as the woman offered a treat from her outstretched palm. The beast, genetically engineered for relentless aggression, sniffed cautiously, then accepted the offering with unexpected gentleness. A Voratian strike team infiltrating Chicago found their camouflaged predator escorts inexplicably following a mail carrier who had absent-mindedly given them treats from a pocket. "They just seemed hungry," the woman later explained to reporters. "My route includes some pretty demanding dogs, so I always carry biscuits." The invasion reached its farcical climax during Draz Kull's broadcasted ultimatum. Standing before his personal war beast, the deadliest specimen in the Voratian arsenal, twice the size of standard variants with enhanced venom glands, he demanded Earth's immediate surrender. Mid-speech, a small figure darted past Voratian security. 10-year-old Lily Chen, daughter of a diplomatic aide who had brought her to this secure observation area, approached the massive creature with the fearlessness only human children can muster. "He looks hungry," she announced, offering half of her peanut butter sandwich. 17 trillion beings across the galaxy collectively held their breath as the war beast, genetically engineered to be loyal only to the Supreme Commander, paused its threatening display, sniffed the offering, and delicately accepted the sandwich from the child's hand. "I'm calling him Mr. Fluffermort," Lily announced, reaching up to scratch behind what might generously be called the creature's ears. The galaxy watched as Supreme Commander Draz Kull, conqueror of 17 worlds, desperately attempted to regain his beast's attention, while it contentedly received belly rubs from a human child. The Voratians' hasty retreat was further complicated when dozens of their war beasts refused to board departing ships. Earth's response was to establish an adoption program, with long lines of humans eager to provide homes for the abandoned space puppies. The formal surrender came 3 days later, with unprecedented terms. The Voratians would cease all hostilities in exchange for Earth sharing its secret animal control technology. "There is no technology," explained Dr. Maizong at the treaty signing. "Just patience, respect, and millennia of co-evolution with the creatures of our world." Draz Kull, stripped of his command but present as a technical advisor, watched the proceedings with a mixture of bitterness and dawning comprehension. At his feet lay a juvenile war beast, now wearing a knitted sweater and responding to the name Sprinkles, that he had somehow acquired during the peace negotiations. Perhaps he conceded to no one in particular. Our evolutionary path was not the only valid one. 20 years after first contact, the gleaming spires of the Galactic Zoological Cooperation Center rose from what had once been Nairobi National Park. The structure, an architectural marvel combining 17 distinct alien building traditions, symbolized the profound transformation that had swept through interstellar society. Ambassador Krulzak, once the terrified Zalaxian who had first encountered Commander Chen's dog Jupiter, adjusted his ceremonial robes as he prepared to address the assembled dignitaries. At his side padded a sleek predator from his homeworld. A creature previous generations would have exterminated on sight, now his constant companion. "Remarkable, isn't it?" asked Dr. Marcus Okafor, now white-haired but still sharp-eyed at 86. 2 decades ago, you couldn't be in the same room as Jupiter without activating emergency shields. "Evolution occurs in unexpected leaps," Krulzak replied, gently stroking his companion's iridescent fur. "Sometimes cultural evolution outpaces biological adaptation." The Galactic Society had indeed evolved at an unprecedented rate. The Interstellar Companion Initiative had transformed life on hundreds of worlds. Species who had evolved as prey animals now participated in conservation efforts to protect the very predators their ancestors had feared. Therapeutic animal programs treated psychological conditions previously considered untreatable. Children across the galaxy grew up with companions of various species, learning empathy that transcended biological categories. Not all changes had been smooth. The Harmony Doctrine, advocating for balanced ecological relationships rather than rigid species hierarchies, had sparked philosophical revolutions and counter-revolutions on dozens of planets. The purist movement still maintained isolated colonies where traditional species boundaries were strictly observed. Yet the broader trend was unmistakable. The galaxy was becoming less fearful, more connected, and paradoxically, more human. The dedication ceremony began with what would have once been unthinkable. Representatives of the Vrex and Zoltan species, ancient enemies whose conflict had spanned millennia, jointly presented their breakthrough conservation project. The creature they had cooperatively saved from extinction had once been feared by both species as a demonic entity. "We now understand it was neither demon nor deity," explained the Vrex ambassador, "but simply another being sharing our world, deserving of respect rather than fear." When Dr. Okafor rose to give the keynote address, he was accompanied by Jupiter IV, the great-grandson of the dog that had caused such chaos at first contact. Throughout the audience, therapy animals, creatures once feared across the galaxy, moved among attendees offering comfort and connection. 20 years ago, Okafor began, his voice carrying clearly through the hall. Ambassador Krulzak transmitted a message that became famous throughout the stars. Humans fear nothing. They pet everything. At the time, this was viewed as evidence of human recklessness, perhaps even madness. Appreciative laughter rippled through the audience. What no one understood then, perhaps not even ourselves, was that humanity's relationship with Earth's creatures wasn't a quirk of our evolution, but its crowning achievement. By learning to communicate across the species barrier, we prepared ourselves for the greater challenge of communicating across the stars. Okafor gestured to the assembled beings from hundreds of worlds. Fear is the natural response to the unknown. Yet fear blinds us to possibilities. When humans reached out to pet the creatures that terrified us, we weren't being reckless. We were being brave in the most profound way possible. We were saying, "I don't know what you are, but I'm willing to find out." In the front row, young Sophia Williams, now Dr. Williams, the pioneering cynothologist, smiled as she watched her old friend Skatal discreetly wipe away emotion fluid from his sensory appendages. Beside him sat his companion, a quadruped from Earth that had accompanied him across 17 research expeditions. The ceremony concluded with representatives from 50 species joining in the once uniquely human gesture of gently petting creatures their ancestors would have fled from, a symbolic act now recognized throughout the galaxy as marking not just diplomatic courtesy, but the triumph of curiosity over fear, of connection over isolation. As the celebrations continued into the evening, Dr. Okafor found a quiet moment with Ambassador Krulzok on an observation deck overlooking the Kenyan savannah. In the twilight, they could see Earth animals and their alien counterparts moving freely in the preserve below, a living testament to changed perspectives. "Did you ever imagine this?" Okafor asked, gesturing to the mixed species grazing peacefully below. "Never," Krulzok admitted. "On my world, we developed technology specifically to avoid physical confrontation with other species. We thought humans were evolutionary aberrations. And now I believe your species found another path, not better, perhaps, but essential for us all to learn from. In teaching us to pet the things we feared, humans showed us how to truly touch the universe."